So for the last 10 days, I've been road tripping through Namibia. No cell service, no laptop, no Zoom meetings, just me and the sand dunes. And during this time, my business made around $52,000. The downside is a lot of things broke in my business when I was not available. A large part of the trip was figuring out what actually broke and what I could do to fix this. So in this video, I'm going to break down what went really well in my business, which I think works well, and some things which completely flopped, which I'm going to fix now. If you don't know me, my name is Neil. I run Made This, which is a national cleaning franchise with over 30 locations. We do residential cleanings as well as Airbnb turnovers. I also run my own local location called Made This Los Angeles, and I've running that for over 11 years. This business has allowed me to travel across 60 countries in the last 10 years almost, running operations completely remotely. And now I teach franchisees how to start their own Made This location to have the exact same model. So things which worked really well while I was gone and while I was completely offline would be SOPs and async communication. What worked really well is contacting the team whenever I needed to via Slack. So the good part is we use something called Notion as our knowledge base. This has all the SOPs or standard operating procedures of the business. If anyone had any questions, they could go to Notion and there's all the cheat sheets and everything they need to do. This covers things like payroll, accounting, what to do in certain situations, things like that. The Notion SOPs, along with proper training, helped with actually keeping the business running forward without me. Previously, when I was running my business, there'd be a lot of them texting me texting them back. I had to be online constantly to be the center of decision-making. Luckily, when you have a really good operations manual, it eliminates all of that. Along with that, we use a lot of Loom videos for async communication. Loom videos is like screen share. So oftentimes I'd be offline and maybe I'd get online a little bit at nighttime with barely any Wi-Fi. My team would simply send me a Loom video of the main updates, the main KPIs or key performance indicators of the business, so I could keep up to date with what's actually happening in the business. Another thing which worked really well is actually having no set calls and no set meetings throughout the week. That gave me a lot of more time to reflect on the business and have clarity in what I was doing. A big part of it is when I'm more available, I found that people and my team members contact me a lot more, right? They might bring me a problem and I ask them to solve it and we're kind of going back and forth to solve it. When I'm just completely offline and they contact me on Slack for a problem, I don't answer, right? Because I literally can't because I'm in the middle of Namibia. Because of that, they end up solving their own problem. Now, what I always try to teach my team members, even though it's kind of tough to do, is whenever they bring a problem to me, at least bring 3 solutions along with it, and I could help decide on any of the solutions. The cool part is when I was offline, the team just ended up making those decisions by themselves because they didn't need to run it by me. And I try to make sure they stayed empowered to do that. So I think what worked really well is being offline and not even being available, and then they were able to do that. The first time I discovered this, actually, I was stranded on the desert island for 10 days straight on Panama. This was 3 years ago. It was the first time I was away from my business. And during that time, I was freaking out because I've never been away for 10 days with no communication at all. And doing that forced me to actually set the systems, the SOPs, the processes, the trainings, and letting the team know what they need to do because I was going to be offline. I realized during that moment that this is an incredible tool just to be strategically unavailable. That allows the team to have more confidence in themselves, allows them to not have to run everything by you, and lets things operate without you. So I think the big part of being offline and being away from your team is actually reveals the weak points of your business. For example, some things which I'll get into, which I struggled with, was around accounting and a lot of these random small tasks, which I still held as something I was doing, which I probably shouldn't have. I think those are the things which broke, but I would not have realized that until I was actually stepping away from the business and in a situation where I literally could not answer people. So let's get into that. What things completely broke when I was gone and what I'm going to do now to fix it. One quick thing I want to know, anything which broke is actually really good. That just proves what you have to fix in your business. Now, I always think if you want to make 10K per month in profit in your business, in whatever business you start, it's not insanely hard to do that, right? But you might be working a lot of hours. What's actually quite hard, in my opinion, is building, let's say, a 10K business, but you're only working 1 or 2 hours a week on it. That's hard. That takes systems, that takes engineering. And a lot of these times where you're strategically unavailable, you're in Namibia, you're on a desert island, you're just offline, reveals what you need to do to have a fully automated business. And that's such a gift. So even though things broke, for me, I feel like this is a step further towards building a fully automated business. So let's get into it with what broke in the business. Number one, on the franchise side, franchise sales calls. So I'm still very intimately involved in who gets into the Made This system and not from a franchisee perspective. I have 2 people on the sales team and they're the ones moving the calls forward. However, I'm always the one hopping on a call to qualify the candidate, make sure they're the right fit and move them along when we get a new franchisee. because I was not available for almost 2 weeks, all of those calls got pushed at least 2 weeks after. When it comes to sales and business, speed to lead is a big deal, meaning you want to get a hold of the candidate as fast as possible. You want to close the sale as fast as possible. If you're stalling things for a couple of weeks, I guarantee you we did lose probably some sales because of this. I realized that I'm kind of the bottleneck when it comes to sales, which isn't a great place to be. This is one area I'm going to focus on a lot, is how do I get out of the process, because this is just not sustainable and this is not how you build an automated business. The second part where I completely screwed up on when I was gone is the accounting stuff. Oftentimes I think like, well, I'll just send payment to this remote team member because it's super easy. It takes me 1 minute to do. But what happens is when you're gone for 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever, these people need to get paid on time. And even though it takes a minute to do, if I don't have internet access, people don't get their money on time. So one thing which I screwed up on is not setting up these systems ahead of time. I solved this temporarily by paying everyone ahead of time. That's not the real solution. The real solution is figuring out a way of someone else doing it, not me. But I think a lot of these accounting tasks I screwed up on. Even things like giving customer refunds or paying certain bills on time end up getting kind of lagged because I'm the one who has the credit card and this is not sustainable. So the solution would be finding like a fractional CFO or an accountant who could take these tasks off of me. Another big thing I think screwed up on is just the delay in making decisions. So for Made This Los Angeles, which is my corporate location, I've had it for over 11 years, doing very well, and I have a general manager in a place named Lisa, who's freaking awesome. Many times we discuss strategic decisions. For example, she wanted to discuss raising prices for our customers. Because I was gone for 10 days at least, we had to stall on that discussion. Now, if you think about the monetary part of that, if we just made that decision a lot earlier, or I empowered her to make that decision herself, we could have made a lot more money in the 2 weeks I was gone. But because that decision still hung on me, raising prices, letting certain customers go, onboarding certain customers, that was the part where we probably lost a good amount of money, just because that decision was based off of me and I wasn't there. That's probably one big area where I screwed up. Even though I was gone on this road trip, I wasn't just lounging, sitting by the desert, drinking mojitos. I was still working. I was still thinking about the business. I was still coming up with creative ideas. I think the beauty of taking trips like this 10-day Namibia road trip is it gave me space to actually think about the business and what I could do to take it to the next level. I think that's incredibly valuable, not being in the weeds, but actually being able to work on the business. There's a CEO coach who I work with. His name's RJ. He's called the RJ, the CEO coach on YouTube. Check him out. I love his philosophy, which is he wants you to go towards what's called a do no work CEO. His whole philosophy is, how do you get to the point where you're doing no work in the business so you can work on the business? And I think having the space with a Namibian road trip allowed me the space to realize what systems are broken, what do I need to work on a little bit more to get it to an automated space, and how do I scale the business? Some things I realized on the road trip is I could focus a little bit more on content, on education, on training the team. I realized what my franchisees need, which is more of like a remote team member type of service to help them onboard team members. And these are thoughts I wouldn't have thought of if I was just in the weeds, right? But sitting back, having these long rides, being in the dunes, just thinking about the business, I'm still working on the business. I'm just not working inside of the business. I think that's incredibly valuable. So the beauty of business ownership is that even though I was gone for 10 days on vacation, I'm still making progress on what I'm doing, right? Because I'm doing the strategic deep thinking, which sometimes is really, really tough to do if you're in the business. When I think about the Namibian road trip, I didn't take this trip to escape from work. I think this was a strategic move to figure out what are the holes in my business, how to make it more automated, and what I could do to take my business to version 2.0. I do think everyone should be thinking about how can I be more strategically unavailable in my business to figure out what the flaws are and how I could get it to the next level based off of that. If you want to see how I made $52,000 while I was on this Namibian road trip, check out the video on my channel to explain the exact steps I did to make this happen.